As a small biz pro, I saw we roll, using procurement, program, and control. As a small biz pro, I saw we grow, using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Ooh, yeah, I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Ooh, yeah, I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Business Zone with
Christo.
and Coach Gilbert Buchanan, your small business paramedic, folks. Today we're going to have an amazing show, but first I'd like to say happy Black History Year.
Yeah, yeah, we need the whole year now, man.
How you doing, my co-host?
I am good. It has been another rocky week with all that's been going on. There was in White House, you know, and there are many people on social media asking this question is remember in the past 4 years how quiet it was when Biden was
Yeah,
in office.
that's true. That is
Do you
true.
miss that?
Yes, I miss it. People didn't even know who the fucking president. Oh, hope they bleep this.
Yes, we
They
just
didn't
like
even know who the president was because there was no war, no strife, no antagonism.
you didn't even think about what was happening in the White House. Every now and then you pop up you and there's a couple of things I miss. One, I miss being able to watch MSNBC. I miss and hearing news that was relatively current and true. I miss that. I when I turn my TV and what I used to do first thing in the morning, um, I would turn on Morning Joe and I would get some kind of when he was normal before he took the knee. And that was how I started my day. I don't watch any news on any news station at all. I have to catch
They,
them on YouTube. Rachel Maddow and Joy, but I'd rather go to Joy on TikTok. I can't handle CNN, can't MSNBC. Forget the local stations. You can't watch them at all.
I have stopped watching those news channels like probably 2, 3 years ago, man, because I got sick of them. I didn't want to hear anything they had to say anymore. I just didn't watch it. If I had to get some news, I would either read the newspaper because they have certain channels, that you can get news like from the newspaper.
Right.
So I would read those or watch those, but I don't really care about any of those things, those news things anymore, man, because they're all sensational. A lot of lies being spun a certain way. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
they've
know.
been like that since actually the first time Flows his Flows his one. But now they are it's just too much because they've censored everything. So you have to go to places like TikTok to get the real deal. And yeah, you just can't. In fact, the other day I saw Don Lemon on TikTok, and I even had to comment in the comments because he was live, and I said, "Man, the way he was speaking was from early Don Lemon days. He was an amazing journalist, and that's what he was. Now he is on his own TikTok channel, and I had to tell him, I was like, now this is what I'm talking about. This is like, oh, you dude." And so many people in the comments were saying the same thing. But yeah, today it's some deep stuff. It
If I were a journalist, they probably would have killed me by now, man. Because I'm not gonna be censored or do all of the little things that they want me to do to spin things a certain. I'm telling it like it is, man. Just like I am right now, telling it like it is
with most of those chambers of commerce out there for small businesses, they're not here in support of small business. They're just here to throw parties and get sponsorship dollars from sponsors and all that. I can't be a part of that, man. How many, and I was thinking about this today because I'm a part of an organization right now that is supposed to be promoting small businesses and putting small businesses on the forefront. But instead, every time I turn around, they're celebrating somebody, has been, or, something that doesn't have anything to do with small businesses, right?
No,
They're
it is.
throwing these little parties and talking about community awareness. No, no, no small business want to talk about any of that. As a
Well,
small business, how is community awareness going to help my business grow? How is it going to pay my employees? How is it going to help my family?
well,
Give me an award for being outstanding small business or a contract.
well. So some of that is because, unfortunately, they have to play to the piper, and so for every nonprofit, their piper is whoever's sponsoring their program. That was one of the things when I first started, when I became the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, was um, you write your proposal, but you had to meet. One of the things that we did was we had to meet with the sponsors to find out where they were now, because every year they change, right? Where the direction is, and the direction is coming from their boards and from people like that, right? And so you, as a nonprofit, it begin to play to the piper pretty much, because
Yeah,
if you need the money, then you have to be in compliance to what they want from you in order to get to that money. And over the years, it became more difficult because they weren't really caring about your mission. They were just caring about their mission and why they would be giving money. Like, for example, right now, when the fallout, and I'm pretty much on the same page. For those of you that are just joining us, last week we had a great conversation with Dr. Thiele Thatch on DEI and what that really meant, right? And that it did not apply to one ethnicity; it applied to every thing about a human being. Your gender, your sexuality, your socioeconomic status, and so forth and so on. And so, um, without that, well, on the other side of it, without that is if companies were providing sponsorship based upon the fact that they put in a DEI program that they really weren't that connected to. You know what I mean? That's what Dr. Thiele said yes last week, right? A lot of them were not connected to it because they felt they had to do it, right?
yeah,
Because of the the customer, making sure they please their customer and their audience and their stockholders and everybody that they had to please. But if they really weren't about that, if they really weren't about that walk,
yeah.
then it was superficial and surface anyway, right?
Hmm.
But on the other side, if they really were about that, um, then that determined how they're giving money. So there are a lot of nonprofits that will not get money now. They will not get sponsorship now. Which for most of these nonprofits out here, they're so small. And their revenue is all based upon sponsorship, donations, and so forth. They will not be able to stay in line. They will not be able to stay open to do whatever they're doing.
And I'm really sorry for many of those nonprofits that have to go through that, have to suffer, and have to compromise their integrity just so
Mm-hmm.
they can get some money. But I'm not one of those organizations that's going to compromise my integrity. I'd rather give away my service for free to small business
Mm-hmm.
before I let these sponsors tell me, hey, you got to uh, be along to go along, or
Right, and that's
do
basically it, right? That's why I tell, I don't know about you, Gilbert, but as a business coach, when people are coming to me and they're just in that space of creating either a nonprofit or a for-profit, and a lot of people seem to think that nonprofits are easier. They are not. In fact,
much more difficult.
much more difficult to establish, run, and maintain a healthy, successful nonprofit that's uh, going to service the people that they've identified in their mission and their vision. And because you can never raise enough money. So when people come to me now, I tell them, I said, let's see if we can think through this as a for-profit. One, why are you doing it? And let me be truthful with you. Finding money is going to be a challenge, especially for a brand new nonprofit. And I give them the steps of what they have to do if they're going to be a nonprofit, what that's going to look like. Most of them have to start out in this day and age with a fiscal sponsor, because they're just not going to write grants, or they're not going to write proposals and get funded like yesterday. That's not going to happen in this day and age. So, and that was
Well,
even before the election.
I would rather continue to run my business the way it is right now, where I donate and provide support to small businesses just by gifting them certain services, certain platforms, certain opportunities. Every year, I gift at least $30,000 worth of services
Mhm.
to small businesses every year,
Mhm.
like clockwork, at least 30,000. I gift them my platform, I gift them coaching services, I gift them consulting services. All I do is I hold them accountable and say, hey, for this that I'm giving you, you got to produce. You got to show me that your business ready. Show me that your contract ready. Show me your loan ready. You know, those are the things I want to see from you. And if they can abide by that, we can have a good symbiotic relationship. I don't really need sponsors, because sponsors are going to tell me how to run my business, how to run my program, and I don't want that. I want to run
Mhm.
a program the way I want to run it, based on my knowledge and experience that I've acquired over the years, over the past 30 years in this industry, in helping small businesses.
Yeah, and that's a lot of, and that's some of those. That's what you have to evaluate, man. Why are you really wanting to do what you want to do, and how much input from the outside do you want, and how many hoops did you have to jump over to get that? Now, today there are some missions that should be nonprofit, but I think it behooves you as a entrepreneur and a a business owner and someone trying to service a certain population in the community is to more have a social enterprise versus having a nonprofit. And so you work on the for profit first, so that the for profit can be strong enough to support the nonprofit, right? Kind of what
Right.
you're doing, Gilbert. So even though you're a nonprofit, you you have set it up so that you still can donate money to a certain population, because you want everyone to get the information,
Yeah.
and you don't want money to be the hindrance for them getting that information, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's what we do, right? We partner up with various organizations that have the same philosophies that we do, and the same commitment to the same population that we do. And then that's how I do. I work with organizations that I believe our philosophies are aligned with one
See, one of my goals at Buchanan and Associates, my organization, is
another.
for small businesses to understand and know the difference between a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement. A balance sheet, a profit and loss statement. What's on a balance sheet? What are the components of it? What's on a P&L? What are the components of it? Small businesses need to know that because when they go to banks looking for lines of credit or loans, banks are asking them certain basic questions and they don't know those things. So then banks think that these guys are not ready, they're not capable, they're not
Mhm.
competent. So why are we going to put our money, invest our
Mhm.
money in them? So
Mhm.
if I can educate a small business so they can be competent, then they can at least articulate themselves in front of lenders or investors to say, here's what my cost of goods sold is. Here's what
Mhm.
my balance sheet is. Here's what my P&L is. Or customer acquisition cost. What is your customer acquisition cost? They should know those things. And those are the things that we teach along with the back office. What's in your back office? How ready is your
Mhm.
back office? How do you get that ready? Oh, you want certification? What certification do you want? Want minority, small business, disadvantaged
Mhm.
business, woman owned business? How do you get that? What's a checklist? Here's a checklist. These are the documents you're going to need. So, all of those things I do to get my small businesses ready. So, these chambers and these other places, man,
Yeah,
always
but that
doing these little events that
yeah, because
has
they're kind of
nothing
forced
to do.
to. They're
Huh?
kind of forced. They're kind of forced to.
Well, yeah, they're forced to, but at least they need to say those things. They don't let the small businesses know that. They make small business think, "Oh, we're here to help you." They're not really here to help, you know. They're talking all this smack so they can get small business. Once I start making my organization more global, most of their clients I'm going to take. I'm going to take chambers. I'm telling you, I'm looking at the camera right
Well,
now.
they
I'm telling
already
you.
your customers because they're coming to you. But
Uh,
however,
oh yeah,
the
they're already
but
coming my
right,
way, but I'm gonna take more of your clients. They're gonna come my way because I'm gonna treat small business the way small businesses want to be treated and need to be treated. I'm not gonna
like,
pretend like I'm here to help them while I'm throwing parties and all these recognition parties.
right.
Oh,
But you
let's
do know the
recognize.
wait a minute. But you do know the other side of that, right? The other side of that is those clients don't want to pay, and so you got to be able to pay your
I
bills.
know
So,
that. I know that.
so
And
that
that's
yeah, you
why
have
I'm
to
trying to work on setting up a system
yeah,
where they understand, okay, these services are not free. You may get some concessions from me, but it's not free. And nothing is free.
right.
Anything that's free, you shouldn't consider it because it doesn't have that much value. Free means no value. Okay.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So in some cases, you have to kind of evaluate that because a lot of those clients that we're servicing in those spaces, don't necessarily have the resources to be able to pay for us at our market rate for the information that we provide for them. So that's why um, they are at those organizations the first place. So it's kind of like you have to, decide which master you serving, helping, but at the same time, those helping people need to be able to support the training and the expert coaching that we provide for them.
Well, I know this is Black History Month and we're celebrating Black history and all of that, but I had to jump on my little soapbox for a second.
Okay.
I, I have to let the audience know that if you're an entrepreneur or small business, don't get involved. Don't get involved with those organization, trade association, chambers. We're talking about, oh, we're here to help you, but all they talk about is parties, throwing parties, talking about lifetime achievement award for certain people who are not entrepreneurs. They're just some regular citizens, or
No,
you're supporting
they're the people
are you
that wrote the
supporting
check
politicians? Huh?
they the people that wrote the check for the grant.
Yeah, I don't care about those people because those checks are not coming my way. So
Right,
I don't really
exactly. So
care about.
that's what that is. So but no, I
So
do agree that we should have businesses that extend beyond our fingertips, that they should be national and international businesses so that you
yeah,
can help whomever, but at the same time, as I tell the kids, Gilbert, or I
Hmm.
tell anyone that come to me with a business idea, the very first question I ask, so how does that make money?
Oh, good, good, good.
What's the business model? How does that make money? And then they
Yeah,
go, and then they'll be thinking about it, and they'll go, I'm not sure. Okay, well
yeah,
then now we got to go back to the because business. If you're in business, if you are skillful at what you do, you that's your product, and you need to be paid for your product, and you need to be paid according to the value of the product that you're delivering. That's what I say. If I'm buying a Gucci handbag, if I was into that, then I expect the value to be equal to the amount of money I'm paying, right? I don't want no knockoff for $10,000. I want the real deal for 10 grand, right? So that's what I say. You have to be paid for your service. In fact, it was interesting. Last night, I go to a dance class on Thursday nights. I'm really into this exercise, take care of body thing right now. So Tuesday, Thursdays, I do this dance class, and so is at a park. So the young lady always says at the end, the instructor, she always says, my little black box over there is empty, and donations are encouraged and accepted. She can't charge because she's at a park, a public place, and so she is always asking. She reminds people that their donations really help a lot, and she goes out of her way to really do just an incredible job. And so every week I pay her. I do mine through Cash App, and so last night she called me when I left, and she says, "I just wanted to thank you because you are so consistent with whenever you come, you pay." And I said, "Because I'm an entrepreneur, and I expect to be paid when I offer a service, so therefore I have to pay someone else that's providing a service for me." And I
and
said, so because I that to me is the best way you can tell a person thank you is to pay them for the services or the advice or whatever they get provided for you, is to pay them. That goes a long way. And it says, I respect who you are, and
yeah,
I value I value your product, or I value your service, or I value the advice that you're giving me. And so I told her, so I said that's ingrained in me. Why would I, if I was going to 24-hour fitness, taking a class, I'd have to pay them. Why would I not pay you? So
yeah,
that's how I look at things. And because to me, that's the biggest insult that I think you can have for someone doing what we do. What do you
yeah,
think? Yeah, that's if you don't value what we do, I think that's the biggest insult. So, hi guys, we are just having some conversation. It's been a very controversial week, and we did have a guest scheduled, but it doesn't appear that she was able to make it. So, Gilbert and I, we are fast on our feet, and we always got some backup. So we always come with Plan B, and so we have Plan B. So it's going to be a great show today. If you guys didn't catch the last week, was the future of DEI and what is its what was its is it going to stay, or is it going to go in this current political climate that we're in? So today we're going to kind of further that to talk about another issue that's kind of tied into DEI. We kind of covered it a little bit, but we're also celebrating Black History Month. So it's going to be a topic that kind of falls in place for Black History Month. And so we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And but I got to ask this question: how is everyone doing out there? I know this is some very stressful times we're living in, and I just want to say to everyone, and I'm sure you've heard this from many more people besides me, is you got to take care of you. Self care right now is so important because our mental status is going to be depleted over the if we don't. And so please take care of you. Take step away, step down, step aside from all of the news feeds, and make sure that you're caring for yourself and your family. And this too shall pass.
And
And
for those who've been affected by the fires here in Pasadena, Altadena, Foothills, even in Burbank, I believe there are folks in Burbank who's been impacted. Hollywood, Palisades, all of those
mhm.
areas, the Eaton fires, and I just want to say that our hearts, our prayers are going out to all of you, your family, those that you've lost, those who have lost their homes and their possessions. We just want to say, um, we're rooting for you, and we're trying to do whatever we can to help and support you. So be strong. Don't give up. You know,
Right.
I've talked to one of my business associates this past week, and
Mhm.
she is there living in a temporary housing facility, but the combustion from the fire has caused her breathing problems. She's
Oh
had
my.
these lung and breathing problems. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people suffering from that too. The air quality has been contaminated. So, I'm hoping this doesn't happen, co-host, but I'm thinking within the next 5 years, you're going to see the results of this fire, really, because people are going to start having lung problems,
Oh yeah. I
bronchial
agree.
problems, yeah, all of that.
Especially the older people, mainly because a lot of those homes were older and asbestos.
Yeah,
And asbestos is one of those things that if you don't touch it, it's okay. But if it's unsettled, if it's
yeah,
moved, then it becomes a major problem. So
yeah,
yeah, I would say that. Also, the what do you call those? The carcinogens that are in ash and
yeah,
smoke and so forth,
right,
being that everything burned down, is that's an issue as well.
right.
So yeah, I would probably agree with you. They've been telling people to be really careful, but now people have finally been able to get into certain areas, and they're trying to see if they can find some stuff that personal stuff. But when you look at it, it's just sad. It is just so sad. So you do now. I don't know if you know, co-host, that the uh, Palisades fires, those were also arson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did they catch the offenders?
100 men, Venezuelan gang.
Really?
Hmm.
Wow. This is unbelievable,
And
man.
my understanding is they I don't know where somebody I saw on, but I haven't verified it. So that they're going to Guantanamo, but I haven't verified that. But 100, and the fire was a the fire was a what do you call it, a not a distraction, but a camouflage for them robbing the houses.
Oh man, this is
They
so
so they
unbelievable.
so they set the fire so that they could rob the houses, but of course, the winds were 150 miles an hour, and so that is um, what happened. So, and then other fires were then set, like in the Santa Monica Mountains, and they've pretty much apprehended the culprit. The only fire that appeared to, not natural causes, but a cause that I don't know if could have been avoided is the one in Eaton, because the wind blew over a Edison tower.
Wow.
Um, and I don't know. And Edison, there was so much going on on those at that time. They didn't. They were supposedly they would. They had said they would turn the power off, but I don't think they got to turn the power off in time before it just went up in smoke. And with the winds being what the winds were. Um, that was a big issue. So just so it's just heartbreaking for the many of people um, that that lost homes, treasures,
See, I
and
can't believe some people have a heart to set fire to other people. You see what I'm saying? How can you do that? How can you do that? You're taking lives, you're killing someone, and it means nothing?
we are living in very interesting times, Gilbert.
This is crazy. This is really crazy.
we That's all I can say. My co-host that we just living in some people are so self-absorbed. So there are a number of people, psychologists, people of that nature that feel that these times are here, or this time is here to teach us, or for us to absorb some lessons and to make some corrections
Wow.
to things that are going on in that go on that we've taken for that advantage, we've taken for granted, or we don't care for other people, just like what you said.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some things that people are there's some come up, and there's some dig deep in the soul,
Hmm.
and it's time for some changes. And somebody asked me that the other day, and they were saying, well, black people have gone through so much. And I said, yes, black people have gone through a lot, but there's some lessons that we need. One of the things we have to learn is how to be united,
Yeah.
and
How to
come
care for
together,
others, and how to, be respectful of others.
and to come together and support our businesses, support our communities, be involved in our communities. That's on the national front. But then I think we have to expand out to the international diasporas. So all of the Caribbean diaspora and the African Americans that are here in the United States, and then an expansion out to the African diaspora. I think it's time that we all came together, because ultimately we the same people. In fact, we may be cousins, because who knows where we came from.
That's true. That is true. Which leads into our topic today, which is the civil rights movement and the key events leading to the movement. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of things happen that would take us toward that movement. A lot of bad things were happening. People weren't caring for each other. People were not respecting each other. People were disrespecting a lot of us. And as a result of that, the movement it gave birth to the civil rights movement. And during that process, we had key events and activities that occurred. And for most of us, we know that uh, in the 20s, we had, as a matter of fact, before the 20s, we had the Black Wall Street. We had
Mhm.
over there in Oklahoma, Greenwood to be
Mhm.
exact,
Mhm.
where blacks were self-sufficient. They weren't depending on government or any other groups to help them. They galvanized and they pulled their resources together,
Mhm.
and they built houses, they built businesses, built banks. Blacks even had their own jet, their own plane.
Mhm. Mhm.
But today, and that has been torn down by the man, because they're going, who are these old blacks thinking they are? Who do they think they are? They need to depend on us. So they
Yeah.
try to rip away our resources from us. So we we have to become dependent on them again. So second time around is supposed to be the charm, guys. So we need to galvanize ourselves again and pool our resources, rebuild, and make sure that we become self-sufficient once again where we don't have to depend on the man or the system, the government. And that's where we're at right now because the government has established what they call a redlining system. That
Mm-hmm.
means they draw a red line around communities and saying the folks who are circled within this red line area shouldn't be getting access to certain opportunities. They shouldn't be fluent. They shouldn't, become self sufficient. They need to rely on us. We're going to take away all the resources. If they need something, we'll give them a little scrap. We'll throw them a bone, but that's about it. They're not going to be able to buy their own home, obtain their own education through our system. They're not going to get good jobs. We're not going to fund their businesses, their business ventures. And that's what all of that was about. And that's what led to the civil rights movement. And for those of you who don't know, the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, and there are several components of the act. You have Title 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and even up to 7, which
Mm-hmm.
state that under these acts, certain things cannot be done, like discrimination, people racial profiling. You're discriminating against people because of race, color, creed, religion. All of those things not supposed to happen. So, folks, we want to make sure that all of us are able to I want to say re-energized and go after opportunities and build ourselves. Now, back then, the civil rights movement was all about, um, and in speaking about the early 20s and before the 20s, it was all about blacks putting together their resources and helping themselves. Now, I think the new look civil rights is about different cultures and different races coming together to pool resources and do business with each other instead of
Mm-hmm.
the oppressors. You see
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So you've got blacks, Latinos, Asian, Native Americans, Africans, all doing business together now, and if we do business together that way, then we don't have to depend on the people who are establishing redlining systems. Those systems
And
on.
let me interject for 1 minute.
Yeah.
So everything that you just said, Gilbert, was
Yes,
reticent of what has just happened in the last 17 days.
that's
The
true.
only difference is back here in the 1800s, there were only three ethnicities on the American soil. It
Mm-hmm.
was the Native American because they
Mm-hmm.
were already here,
Yeah.
and then the colonizers
Mm-hmm.
came and they
Yeah.
brought us. So
Yeah.
those are the only three: the colonizers, the Native Americans, and then the slaves that were a result of the transatlantic slave
Yeah.
uh, uh, um,
Slave
uh,
trade.
trade, right? And so, really, all of the systematic racism and separation or segregation was about us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a result, once we were emancipated in 1864, we're no longer slaves, but then we encountered the Jim Crow laws, and then that was all during the Reconstruction era. And I do know that young people today are not learning anything about this. None of this is in anybody's school in today's world. And
Yeah.
so all of those laws were there to again marginalize us as Black people. Man, there was only three ethnicities here.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to deny us equal rights because they truly, really wanted us still as slaves, but the law prevented it, right? And the Civil War took place because of it. So this is the result of that in the early 20th century. And then we moved on to World War II. There were some more orders that prevented that. Then things started to change, right? So in the World War II era, Franklin, President Franklin Delaware Roosevelt ordered to prohibit I'm sorry, racial discrimination in the national defense industry, right? So
Mhm.
because they needed soldiers. And so now they needed us.
Right,
They
right.
also needed us during the Civil War. And really,
Mhm.
the reason that the North won was because of us, because of the slave, the now freedmen. And um, they fought for the country, for democracy in this country. But they were the ones that really truly had no freedom, even after they did the fighting, and they never got acknowledged for it. And so that is um, some of it. And then we moved along. We have the Board of Education post World War II, and then from there, um, um, well, no, before that we had Plessy, and Plessy was the separation, but the doctrine of separate but equal, allowing segregation as facilities supposedly equal. So again, more reason. This is pre DEI, and actually this is probably DEI as a civil rights movement. That's what
Mhm.
DEI is, right? Is a civil rights movement, and so we had to move. We then moved forward from there. And so we just want you guys to understand that this is a fight that has been going on in America
For
since
centuries now.
for centuries, from the very beginning, very from the day that they deposited the first slave on the soils of American soils. This has been going on. So DEI is not some new animal. It is just a remake of something that happened before. So
And see, my point to this co-host, and for those of you who are listening, those of you who are just tuning in, this is the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. This podcast, it comes on every Friday from 3 to 4:30, and we're here in support of small businesses to provide support, knowledge, information to help small and micro businesses become sustainable so that they themselves can grow, help their families, help their communities. So in the vein of that, my co-host just talked about Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. That's the Supreme Court ruling that established the doctrine of separate but equal. So the Supreme Court said, okay, we don't really care about giving you guys equal rights. So what we'll do is we'll make you guys separate but equal. So you're going to be separate from us. You stay in your world, we'll stay in our world, but you do the things you need to do. So that's what will make you equal in that sense, because you get to be entrepreneurs, you get to build, and you get to do sustainable things. Now, because of that ruling, it gave birth to many black entrepreneurs and innovators back in the time in those days, 1896. They came up with inventions, inventions that helped to make their lives easier because no one really cared about the blacks then. Like, whatever you guys want to. So blacks were coming up with inventions that would make their lives easier. They were becoming entrepreneurs. They were selling their technology and their services and products to other blacks who are ex-slaves who are out there trying to survive and sustain themselves. So that gave birth to the Black Wall Street
mhm,
in, in Oklahoma, Greenwood to be exact, Greenwood, Oklahoma.
mhm.
And so they were thriving. The blacks were thriving. They're going, hey, you had black millionaires, had their own business, their own doctor's office. They had their own jets, their own bank. Blacks were
They
thriving.
were rolling, Gilbert. They were rolling.
They were rolling in the dough. They were high rollers, right? So then the government said, wait a second. These guys they're thriving too much. They're too happy. I mean, the Supreme Court passes rule that says separate but equal, but these guys look like, yeah, they're unequal. They're better than us because
Mm.
we're living in these little houses, these little shanty towns. These
Mm.
guys got mansions.
And you're jumping on planes to get from one place to
Yeah,
another, and we
exactly.
we on a horse.
You're jumping on planes to get from Oklahoma to Miami? Come on. We can't have that. So they bombed the areas, they burned down the places, they kill over 3,000 blacks, you know, and they destroy the communities that the blacks had built to thrive. And that's where you saw, a different movement. Things were moving into a little different direction, and then they start suppressing blacks again. So then that's when um, you start having marches, you start having civil rights leaders going out there and say, hey, we can't afford to have this going on. And hey, government, leave us alone. Let us do our thing. Supreme Court already passed a rule that says separate but equal. So if we're separate, let us do our thing by ourselves. We don't need you guys to come and and supervise us and tell us what to do, how to be men, how to be families. We knew how to be that. We're
We
from the
had our
motherland.
culture, we had our churches,
We had our churches, we had
we
everything.
we educated our children, and just
Yeah.
to add to the Black Wall Street, Gilbert. So this was happening all over the country. So you had Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There was Jackson Ward in Raymond, Virginia. There was Bronzeville in Chicago, Illinois. There was Haiti in Durham, North Carolina. There was Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, Georgia, and there was West 9th Street in Little Rock, Arkansas, and there was Ferris Street in Jackson, Mississippi. So
Hmm.
it wasn't just in this one place. This is the one place that they speak of most often, and this is the one you hear. But there
Yeah.
are others. It is
Right.
my understanding that Durham was one of the ones that seemed to survive over that time frame. And I
Hmm.
guess after, as we keep going through the causes, Atlanta also today is probably Atlanta and Chicago are probably one of the most thriving um, Black or African American communities that are doing supporting their own, they're separate but equal.
Yeah.
But the other ones they destroyed those places. Mississippi, of course, Little Rock, Arkansas, those were destroyed. So, and of course, Tulsa, Oklahoma. But you know what's interesting, Gilbert?
Hmm.
I have several clients that are from Oklahoma, and one of my clients I've known the longest, they were never, and they were not in Tulsa. Yeah, they were in Tulsa,
Hmm.
but in another area, and they were farmers. They had never heard of Black Wall Street until they came to California.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing how that bit of information has been kept from us. From
And
our
they were in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And they didn't even know it.
They were educated in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They went to college in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they until they came to California, or until they migrated out this way, they had never ever heard of it
That is unbelievable, man.
because it had been annihilated. So I guess what they didn't see, and they
Yeah,
weren't being told that by the powers that be. That's
right, right.
history, right? And so, but then as Gilbert says, we move on from there, separate but equal. But at the same time, we burning, Black Wall Street. But now there's a war. So World War II era. As I said, Franklin Delaware Roosevelt. They needed the black people to fight in the war,
Hmm.
to go over to protect the country and to because this is World War II is Nazi Germany
Hmm.
and so there was a lot of stuff. Pearl Harbor, all that stuff was happening all at the same time, wasn't it? But it was all for the fight of democracy and freedom.
Yeah.
but in this case, it was for the Jewish people. Germany was annihilating and exterminating, over 6 million Jews. So they wanted black people to go. So he issued an order to prohibit racial discrimination in the military. And at that time, they adopted, and you guys heard this just last week, because they wanted to eliminate this history. The Tuskegee Airmen, they were the black military aviators who served with distinction during World War
Mhm.
II, and they broke barriers in the U.S. Army Air Corps. If you guys haven't seen Red Tail and a number of other stories that are on Netflix and Prime Time, Prime Video, go watch it. These were some incredible, highly made,
Highly
what do you call
trained pilots.
highly trained pilots, and they literally helped um,
The U.S.
U.S.
won the
win the
war.
war. Right.
And
So they.
also they have this movie called Top Gun with Tom Cruise, right? A lot of people have
Mhm,
watched that movie and they go, "Oh, Tom Cruise, he's so good in this." The Tuskegee Airmen were the original Top Guns. Those guys were the guys who fought in wars, air wars. They're fighting in the air in these jets. They're the skilled jet fighters. They're the ones when the enemies see those guys coming, they run like crazy. They're, oh, I'm afraid of these guys. These guys are crazy. They'll kill us. Because these guys, not only were they highly trained, but you know us, man, in the hood, we're trained a different kind of way.
We
We're
don't come
trained a different
mediocre.
kind of way, you know?
We
So
ain't never mediocre.
we're never mediocre. So they were applying different techniques, different styles, and different tactics. So the enemies could not figure us out. And that's why every time the US had to run a mission, they brought in those Tuskegee Airmen because those guys were just amazing. Most of the times they exclude the Tuskegee Airmen. They said, "Oh, we'll just keep our regular boys or regular Dixie boys out there to fight these wars," and then those Dixie boys start dying off because they don't know the tactics. So they have to call
Hmm.
in the Tuskegee Airmen and say, "Okay, boys, go take care of this." And we will go out there and we take care of business. And they go, "How do you do that?"
And it wasn't just the men. So in
Yes,
the
that's
black
true.
women also primarily served in the Women Army Corps,
Yeah.
and it was an all black, all female battalion called the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion. If there's a
Hmm.
movie currently on Netflix that it's a Tyler Perry movie,
Yeah.
and with Kerry Washington, and these women tackled massive backlog of mail for soldiers overseas facing significant discrimination despite their critical
Hmm.
role in communication. Notable figures includes Major Charity Adams, who led the 6888 Union as the highest ranking black woman in the military during the war. And so they did. So if you want to see what that was, go over to 6888, and they will. It's the story about how they were able to um, uh, go through massive logs of mail to get them to their loved ones, because they didn't know where they had not heard whether they had lived or died, and the mail was stacked up in barracks. It must have been 19 barracks and filled to the top, to the rafters, and they had to go in and decipher to it, and they mastered it, man. So, and then you have Rosie the Rigger. Those are the women, the white women that were doing their thing, but they too, as women, um, uh, faced a lot of discrimination. Again, we're talking separate but equal, but still
Hmm.
discrimination.
Yep. And while they were doing that, while they were kicking butts in the air and making things happen on the ground, we had another champion here, attorney and civil rights activist Thurgood Marshall. He was
Ah,
one of the best black attorneys during that time and up until 1993 when he died. But he was the one He was a mover and shaker. He made things happen, and he's won over 28 cases, 28 out of 32 cases. So he was just a mover and shaker co-host. I'd say today he would be the Johnny Cochran.
He would be the well, no, he would be the Ben Crump right about now. Ben Crump has replaced by Johnny Cochran. But yes, those two great heroes in the law space, and I'm sure there's so many others. But yeah, he would be the probably a combination of both Ben Crump and I'm sure
And
and
Johnny
Johnny
Cochran.
Cochran. I'm sure that their inspiration behind their success is also uh,
Oh yeah.
from Thurgood Marshall. So, uh, but again, we are still facing so many racial barriers, even though we're contributing to this country that, in my case, in my opinion, has been extremely ungrateful for all that we contributed. But again, we were here. We this is where we are. We don't know where we came from, but this is where we are. This is our country, and we're
Yeah.
going to fight for our country.
Oh, for
So
sure.
that is
For
what
sure.
took place. And so again, when you guys heard 2 weeks ago that they wanted to in this last 17, 18 days, they wanted to eliminate the Tuskegee Airmen. Understand the significance of that. That war would not have been won if it had not been for the Tuskegee Airmen. So just remember that when you're hearing all of this stuff that's being eliminated from
Or history.
but yeah,
From all the
all the
history
history,
books.
not just our history, your history as
All the history
well.
books.
Yeah, from the history books as if it never existed, and I don't know what blank page we gonna end up on, but
You,
like,
you
like
know
they
what
gonna exercise all this other stuff out.
what I would recommend, co-host, what I'd recommend to everyone, not just blacks or minorities, but whenever you hear about certain history, do some research and see if there's another side to it or there's additional information about it, because I can guarantee if it's minority history, there is another side to it and a lot more information, whether it's African American, Native American, Hispanic American, Asian American. The stories are out there, man. You just got to dig. And where we were able to validate and verify a lot of this information is because it's been passed down from one generation to the next. And that's how we know, our foreparents tell us about it. So your great great grandfather will tell your great grandfather, and the great grandfather will tell your grandfather, and then your grandfather will tell your father, and then that's how it is. And then the great grandmothers, man, they keep a journal of all of this stuff. Like, for example, co-host, the lady, the Black Wall Street event, there
Hmm.
was a lady who was a sole survivor of that event. She was 100 and something. I don't know if she's still
Mm.
alive, but she's the one who told exactly what happened, what was going on, how the government and a lot of thugs came in, start bombing the area, killing people, imprisoning people, the ones who they didn't kill, they imprisoned them. And she had a journal. She was just telling it like it is, man. I know they'll say, she's old, she don't remember. That woman had a journal.
That woman is still alive. I think just
She's still alive.
she celebrated her 110th birthday.
Oh man, that's amazing. So that's
Yeah,
how we learn. We don't learn from lies that people are telling us. We learn from true, authentic facts. That's
right.
verifiable.
And I'm going to for those of for because we got some other stuff happening on this on the Christianity front. So in the Bible, under Hosea 4 chapter 4 verse 6, my people are destroyed from lack of from knowledge. And so what it meant was, if the people were rejecting the information and ignoring His word, God's word, then the people would surely perish. And so, if we listen today and allow people to take away our history, we will perish.
That's true.
And so, and that's documented in the king in the Bible, and so you want to read that, but it's very important. So don't reject the history. You go and do your own homework, your own research. It's available. It's at your fingertips. We got this wonderful thing called the cell phone, which is the
Hmm.
most knowledgeable piece of information and probably the most valuable asset that you have. Is because it provides you with anything, it answer any question you have. You don't have
Yeah.
to listen to someone else. You have that. So even if they take history out the books, you can
Hmm.
still go find your history. Do not let
Yeah.
someone tell you that this did not happen. You challenge them and you go and you do some research. So unless they're gonna eliminate the internet and get rid of, as my mother used to say, the www, the World Wide Web, that information is always available to you. And I would challenge you guys to go, especially in the state of California, go read up on the history of Mexico, and that the state of California was actually Mexico. So
Yeah.
when the Hispanics or the Latinos say this is just as much my country as your country, because
Yeah.
this was Mexico, this was their country.
Yeah.
And when the Native Americans say this is my country, there's everything east of Mexico was theirs.
Yeah.
the the people that are trying to steal our history and the people that are trying to take away who we are and the contributions we've made to this country are the people that are the immigrants. They're the people from Europe. And so they are actually the ones that are invaders, not the people that are already here. So just had to
And
throw that
and
in there.
And something that I also want to throw in there, since you guys are looking stuff up and you don't really understand what's going on, I want you guys to understand that African Americans and Hispanics, they fought together in the Mexican American War, and it was a civil war, and to
Mhm.
take back California, okay,
Mhm.
because the government, they took over most of the Mexican land, and they had to fight back to regain Mexico. So the blacks and the Hispanics were fighting together, guys. You need to know these things. That's part of your history. Part of your history. So don't forget that. Look it up. 1861. Look it up.
And right, exactly. So just know, one, America was already inhabited. It was not discovered by anybody. There was already living life, functioning life, already on the land of America. So now let's jump on into post World War II. This was Brown. Now we didn't fought in the war. We didn't help save America. We didn't done all of these things. Now again, um, we were separate but equal. But however, in 1954, Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation in schools was unconditional, overturning the separate but equal doctrine. So now, I want to go back to racial uh, uh, segregation.
You know,
In
you
my
know why they
opinion,
did. You know why they did that, right?
go ahead and tell us.
Because after they passed that bogus rule back in the day about separate but equal, they saw, okay, we say, all right, separate but equal, we're cool with that. And we start thriving. We start building communities. We start building companies, millionaires flying around in jets. They saw all of that. And then they burned down, Black Wall Street and all that. So now in 1954, they're like, oh, we can't let them have this much authority. Oh, well, now we're going to overturn the separate but equal rule. You see what I'm saying? That's what happened.
Right, exactly. So no matter what you do, we gonna come back. So okay, now we're separate. Now you want segregation again. I actually think we should have stayed at segregation myself.
Exactly.
We should have stayed exactly that, because what we would have done, we
Yeah.
would have rebuilt Black Wall Street, and we would have been fine.
Yeah.
But then no, but they wanted to create that, and we fought that. But in 1955. Emmett Till. It was the brutal murder of a 14-year-old black boy in Mississippi, and the subsequent acquittal of the killer drew national attention to the violence and injustice faced by African Americans. Now, let's roll us back to 2020. I believe we had another Emmett Till murder, did we not?
Yes, we did.
and
And it's
um,
called George Floyd.
right, and so it was called George Floyd. So again, it had national attention,
International.
international attention. Why? Because we were sequestered in our homes due to the COVID-19, pandemic, which was worldwide and killing millions and millions and millions of people. I think America lost about 1.5 million. Remind you, it was under the president, who was the president at that time. We call him the fella now. It was under his ruling. And so here we are back here again. And so we had the DEI. DEI is the word, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is the word that began to populate in 2020 as a result of the killing of George Floyd. We just want you guys to see the pattern here. There's a pattern that has been established, and we just wanted you guys to make sure you understand everything that has led up to where we are today. And
And
so,
I just want to throw this in there in addition to what you're saying, co-host. I mean, we're saying this and we're recommending that you guys go read and do some research and see, verify a lot of the information we're saying. I really want you guys to pay attention because people who do not know their history, they are bound to repeat what atrocities occurred to them before or their parents before. So people who do not know their history is bound to repeat those atrocities that occurred to their foreparents before. So you got, and just remember this, everything we do in life is cyclical. Okay, whatever happened in the 13th century will reoccur maybe in the 15th or 16th century. Whatever happened in the 16th century will occur in the 18th, 19th century. So just remember, whatever these things that are happening today, they're not brand new. They've
no, no,
happened
well,
before.
we see it right here in this little thing right here. In fact, from 1955 to now, again the Emmett Till murders, 65 years has passed, and here we
Mhm.
are back again,
With
dealing with the
George
same
Floyd.
situation, right? Segregation. That is really what, if you guys are listening, that is what they're asking for. They're asking Project 25 is actually segregation. They're
Hmm.
looking at racial segregation. They want this country to be all white, and they want to eliminate everyone in it that is not. And the ones that they can't eliminate, like us, they want to make sure that they want to make sure that we are separate, that we have no rights, and we've gone back to just before 18, well, just at 1864 or 62, when we were not, when were under Jim Crow and just emancipated from slavery. I would imagine they probably want us back in slavery, because once they deport all of the migrant workers, then they're going to have someone that is going to work in the fields, because they certainly are not. And so that we just want you guys to understand, your education and knowledge in history is that's the foundation of how we operate as people, as human beings. You have to understand what happened and led us up to those places, to where we are. So some key events leading up to where we are: Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott, as we were fighting for civil rights. The Little Rock Nine in 1957, faced violent resistance when they attempted to integrate the Little Rock Central High School, and then Greensboro sit-in 1960, where four African Americans, the college students, sat at the white only counter and sparkly and similar protests. It sparked similar protests across the world. So I don't know if you know this, Gil, because it really wasn't on any of the mainstream news outlets. But yesterday, February 5th, which was 2 days ago,
Yesterday. Oh, 2 days
yesterday,
ago. Yeah,
two
two
days
days.
ago,
Yeah.
there were in 50 states, there were protesters at the capital of every state protesting what is happening under the
In
Trump,
Washington.
and in Washington with Trump and Musk. And they
Oh,
have been, and they will continue to protest. And here in Los Angeles, we had major protests, and it has been going on for the last 3 days with the Mexican Americans that are actually citizens here, and they're protesting for the cruelty and inhuman deportation of women and children. Children handcuffed to airplane seats because of what's going on, and which is just inhuman. You chain a child to a seat. What happens if there's a plane crash? That's immediate death for those. So it's just crazy. It's insane. But these events, among others, galvanized the civil rights movement and set the stage for further actions and legislation aimed at achieving equality and justice for Black Americans. So we're going to ask you guys this question as we move forward to who were the instrumental and influential civil rights leaders throughout history that have fought for really um, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But
exactly.
it's the civil rights movement, and they were looking for equity, equality, and justice for African Americans. But if it was not just for us, I know you guys think that is, but if African Americans receive justice, all people would receive justice. And so white women actually receive most of the benefits of these fights. I'm so sorry, but that is who really benefited the most.
But
Um,
the civil rights leaders were pretty much global. They weren't just blacks, or they're from other ethnicities too, all over the world. So,
right, exactly. They definitely were. You won't see that on the screen, guys, but the civil rights.
starting with Nelson Mandela, right?
Right. Well, we have with American civil rights movement. We all know Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
He his leadership in fighting against racial segregation, and his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And we just celebrated his birthday in January. But he is a
Less than a
result,
month ago.
yeah, less than a month ago, and he rose during Rosa Parks, during the Little Rock Nine, the Greensboro, all of that kind of started to come together at that time, and when he walked across the bridge, he and many people lost their lives fighting for freedom. Rosa Parks, she's known for the mother of civil rights because she refused to give her seat up on a bus because she was extremely tired, and she refused. Malcolm X, he was a very prominent activist for Black empowerment and self-defense, known for his powerful speeches and activism. The Black Panthers were there to provide food and education for the children. That was really what they were there doing, providing free meals to the kids and breakfast for the children. And Ella Baker, she was an organizer with the NAACP and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and she played a key role in the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee. And then, as Gilbert had said earlier, Thurgood Marshall, he was the Supreme Court Justice, and he was a key figure in the legal battles against segregation. And it's so sad. You have Kataji Jackson, and you have Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas is
Night and day.
definitely an embarrassment to Thurgood Marshall. because
No,
he does
they-
everything he can to fight against us and us. I usually when I find Gilbert, I don't know if you feel this way, but black people that fight against their own best interests and look to discourage other people that are fighting. To me, those are people that are very self-hating people. They hate themselves first, and
self-hating, they're weak,
they're
and all
weak.
they do is move the movement backwards,
Yes,
several step backwards.
right. Now you can go with the global civil readers, leaders.
Well, as we know, the civil rights movements was not just moving along in the US alone, because people all over the globe, they're watching, just like they were watching with George Floyd. You see there are marches and movements in all these different countries, man, even in Japan, Germany. I'm going, what? So these people are there because they're seeing what's going on. So you have Nelson Mandela in South Africa, with his effort against apartheid. In this is Elon Musk country, so
Mhm.
they were. His movement was to make sure that blacks receive fair treatment. They wanted equity and inclusion, but they wanted to be separate too. They really didn't care much about being like Elon Musk and his family, who suppressed them. So that's what this was all about. And Mandela, they imprisoned him for multiple years. We're talking decades. They put him in prison and they throw away the key. Somehow, some of us in a coalition went there looking for that key. We found it, and he was released because the oppressive government there realized that they couldn't hold him prisoner anymore, so they had to release him. He was released at a much older age. He was in his 90s, and he still did what he could to help promote the movement, but it was just really tough not having a lot of support. So on the Indian side, we had Gandhi, who
Mhm.
also fought for Indian independence in that civil rights movement, and that movement was against the British. So the British
Mhm.
was equivalent to the American government and oppressors who try to oppress the people. So Mahatma Gandhi decided to do what Martin Luther King did over there, nonviolent activism.
Mhm.
So they did their effort in order against the British government to make sure folks were free. They got their independence eventually. I believe they got their independence in I think it was 1980 or somewhere around there. So they were able to, galvanize and fight against the oppressors as well. You have Olympe Guades, a French playwright and political activist, who demanded that the French women be given the same rights as French men, similar to what happened with the women's suffrage movement
Coverage.
here in the
Mhm.
US.
Mhm.
So women fought for the right to vote. Women fought for the right to drive a car, to have a credit card, have their own jobs. So it's the same thing that happened in the French economy. And then you got W.E. Du Bois, which is an American sociologist and historian. He fought for civil rights as well. He co-founded the NAACP. So, this is something that a lot of our younger generation don't know. They call them Gen X and Gen X and Gen Z and Gen Y and all of that.
Mhm.
They have no clue, who formulated some of these movements. They don't even know what some of these movements stand for, NAACP, so they don't even know the purpose of it. So they're here existing and carrying on life, but they don't truly know why they have these opportunities to do the things they're doing today. So, you know, here on the business zone, we're recommending that you guys do a little digging. W.E.B. Du Bois, okay, an American sociologist, historian, and civil rights activist, founder of the NAACP. That's NAACP, guys. So check it out. When
Yeah.
your rights are violated again, you get pulled over by a cop.
Yeah, you
Just
have
think
your rights.
about it.
And there are also, so many other um
Activists.
activists going on. James Baldwin, he was writing books, and he was fighting for for black people during that time. But there's a quote here, and I think it's very significant um, to what we're talking about, because if you guys see, there's so many overlays with what is happening today. So this is not this this not 2025 is like taking you back to eliminate all of this in between, and as if it didn't exist, and it makes them feel uncomfortable, so they don't want you to remember it, and they don't want their children to see it, because they know this is a very hateful time, all the
Yeah,
hatred that was there. So there's a quote from James Baldwin. um, it says, the most dangerous creation of any society is the man who has nothing to lose.
that's
It is
true.
certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most furious enemy justice have. People are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them.
Mm,
Love does not begin and end the way it seems to think they seem to think it does, and those who say it cannot be done are usually interrupted by others doing it. So understand that the systematic racism and pain to marginalize Black people, women, Latino people, or any person that is the child of God, in my opinion, is a sin, because God made each and every one of us, and we shouldn't be made to fear because other people want to eliminate, and they are fearful of the history, and to be able to take accountability for their actions. If they took accountability for their actions, came to terms with it, and apologize, then everybody would go back and be a fine, right? But no,
yeah,
they want to push the point. So I want you guys to know that just like the many leaders before us who made so many significant contributions to the fight for civil rights, um, and can, but we too have to fight for civil rights, and we have to continue to fight so that we can inspire our future generations. These are the children that are coming up behind us. We have to coexist, and we have to come to terms with all of this hatred that is going on in this world today. But know that this is not new. This is stuff that if for over the last 500 years that everybody's been existing on these lands, this has been the problem. And just like Gilbert said, um, it was not just America, it was as well as international, and know for sure that Great Britain is they're the ones that colonized everyone, and submitted them to be inferior to everyone else, be inferior to them. So this is it. Before we close the show, there's a couple of
Before
things.
before you do that, co-host, I wanted to add one little piece to what you just said.
Okay.
I wanted to add the fact that in the late 1800s and throughout the whole 1900s, this country was established on stop and frisk, where the police could just stop and frisk any one of us, search us, and if they feel like they please, they could put us in jail. That's kind of what this doctrine, the 2025 doctrine, is trying to reinvigorate. They want to see that stop and frisk philosophy being incorporated again in their rules. So,
Mhm.
people need to pay attention to those things because it's not just going to affect us, it's going to affect pretty much most groups.
Mhm.
They're going to just stop you and want to search you. I see all these videos on YouTube where, the cops will pull people over and then they just start telling them to come out of the car so they can search them. There are laws against that.
Mhm.
There are laws against that. It's a constitutional right that people have. That's a Fourth Amendment right there. You know, on legal search and seizure, illegal search and seizures. You cannot have people like with authority just pull you over and decide to search you because they tell you look suspicious or you match the description.
Yeah.
That's what they say all the time. We match the description. What description do I match? you
Right.
know. So I just wanted to put that out there, co-host.
And along those same lines, Gilbert. So the immigrants, the individuals that are under attack right now by ICE, know you too have rights. Even if you're not here in this country legally, you still have rights because as long as the Constitution, United States Constitution, is in place, you have rights. So you have rights to legal assistance. You have the right to an attorney. You have the right to seek legal assistance if detained by ICE and facing immigration proceedings or deportation. Immigrants have the right to a fair hearing and access to legal assistance if you are facing deportation. Know your rights. Carry your rights with you. Carry the phone number. Put your attorney or an attorney or the ACL on speed dial on your phone and make sure if you are the illegal one and your family members are there, have them call and read out your rights. And don't let anybody in your home because you are protected from unconstitutional, as Gilbert just said, searches and
And
arrest
and
by the
seizures.
federal
Yeah.
immigration agents. That is your right. So unlawful search and seizures is against the law as it stands and against the Constitution. Immigrants have the right to remain silent when questioned and arrested by immigration officers. Know your rights. Other rights you have is access to emergency medical care, and immigrants have the right to be secure in their home and workplaces. They cannot come in and bust in your door. It is against the law. So resources for you, the ACLU, they have resources for you. You can file a complaint there. The National Immigration Law Center defends the right to public education for children, and the Coalition for Humane Immigrants' Rights is a nonprofit that serves and protects the immigrant community. So know your rights, just as we say to Black people, know your rights. They just can't come and pull you out of cars and stuff. That ain't the way that works. The United States Constitution protects us, so know your rights, everyone. Pull it off the internet and read it verbatim. Put it if you need it in Spanish, do so. But just be aware and be careful. Right now. Next is so there we go. So let me tell you a couple things about the DEI, which is really civil rights. We talked about that in last week's show. You can go there and hear all the details of that. But here are some things that DEI did include that affects everyone, not just Black people. Ramps and sidewalk curb cuts is a result of DEI for the benefit of the disabled. Subtitles and captions on your TV and phones for the disabled. Family restrooms, changing tables in men's restrooms for men that are taking care of their children, their babies. Breastfeeding, pumping stations, and accommodations for women and their families, their children, floating paid holidays, paid equity and transparency, parent leave, time and pay, coming back to work after birthing a child, not having to just accept workplace harassment, work accommodations for a variety of disabilities, flexible work schedules, size inclusion chairs and beds in medical facilities, and belt extenders on planes. These are the things that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion provided. It's not about the color of anyone's skin, or it's about so much bigger than that. So that's where we are right now. So just wanted you guys to know that. But Gilbert, when I was in South Africa 2 years ago, when I was in South Africa 2 years ago, yeah, that was in 2023. Um, yeah, 2023. I actually visited the prison where Nelson Mandela was, and it was just, it was, it was something else. It
Despicable.
it was unlike no prison here in America. It was iron beds with iron,
He
like
didn't even have a blanket.
no blanket, no nothing,
Oh
and it
no!
had like iron. It's like it was a cot, double cot bunk beds, but it had metal or railings or whatever, so that, and the mattress was about that thin, and so you could feel it. And so in the end, it was like a stucco buildings. It's super hot in South Africa, and super cold in the summer, and super cold in the winter. It was it was eye opening, and there were people from all over the country. You came out like you just wanted to start bawling like a baby. It was something else. So Nelson Mandela spent 20 something years in that prison. It was horrendous. So guys, that is our Black history, speaking on how today ties into yesterday and how it affects us on every aspect of our lives, but it definitely affects us having a livelihood and being equal and having inclusion. But they want me to go back to, um, they want us to go back to segregation. I'm good with that. I'm just so tired of dealing with these people. I am very good with that.
Well, we definitely hope, folks, that you gathered some information out of the data that we just presented to you. It may not directly impact you right now, but once you go back and you watch this show, watch this video again, it may occur to you, it may appeal to you, and it may make you start asking questions. That's all we're asking, for you to ask questions. Be as inquisitive as my co-host. Well, the inquisitive person get to learn a lot more. Okay? So check out the history. Check out, see what's going on. See how it relates to today's date. You're going to see a lot of repeat, a lot of repetition on things that occurred before slowly happening again. So that's what this is about. Those of you who just joining us, this is the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. We're on every Friday from 3 to 4:30, and you can go to YouTube and you can scan. I see my co-host put up a QR code here on
Well, this is
how.
actually for our merchandise we're selling in honor of Black History Month. It's
Yes.
understanding your history. So we have hoodies and long sleeve shirts with the inspiration of protecting our history in our past. We even have cups, yeah, for the whole series. So you guys can, I'll put this in our YouTube and you can purchase that. And it's Black History, honoring the past, inspiring the future. And so it's very important that we connect with our future. And as Gilbert says, making sure that you understand what is happening in America, and you're from your facts, not from what they tell you. And so we just want to make sure of that. But within that as well, please go over to our YouTube channel and hit our subscribe button, or use this QR code to become a subscriber. It doesn't cost you anything, but we have a wealth of information over there. And for you as a business owner, Gilbert and I are both business coaches, and we love sharing, and we love helping businesses become business ready, um, bank loan ready and contract ready is so important, and more important today than it ever has been. We have to show that we have to become self-sufficient, and where we're not needing anything outside of our own community, and that we can rise to be successful together in unity, people. And with that, Gilbert, we are going to say have a great weekend, everyone. Um, Take some time out for self, step away from the news outlet, because it is crazy, 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 and it's going to get crazier, unfortunately, because it's just the nature of the times that we're living in. And so we just need you guys to know that, just from time to time, you just need to take care of self. So, but you do have to listen to the news, because you don't know what the heck is about to happen. Find you some reliable news so that you can be safe in this
make
very.
make sure there's not another hostile takeover like there was 3 days ago, right?
Yeah, it was a hostile takeover. We got all kinds of tariffs. You encountered tariffs this week, and then a back down. Then you saw people invade. Oh, and you found people invading the U.S. Treasury, and now your personal information may be compromised. I would also tell everyone before we get off this one, make sure you check on your bank account on a regular basis. Make sure you call your bank and let them know if there's any unscrupulous behavior going on, to put a my bank account knows my bank understands the habits that I and how I spend. And so if it's something that they don't understand, they put a lock on the account um, until they reach out to me. Do the same thing with your credit card. Put a credit lock in on your credit so that your credit is not compromised. Your information has been compromised, and we don't know what they're going to do to it. And so be careful out there, guys, as we are not living in unsafe times. But trying to somebody steal your identity is very hard to get your identity back. You got to prove who you are. So make sure you are staying vigilant with your money and your credit, because your Social Security has been compromised, your bank account information has been compromised. Who else knows? Your tax information has been compromised, your passport information. So that's everything about you. So just be vigilant on the scams that are going to be out there. And guys, don't do no Bitcoins right now. There's some major scams happening there. All righty.
We'll see you
Okay.
next week, guys.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.
As a small biz pro, so we roll, using procurement, program, and control. As a small biz pro, so we grow, using procurement, program, and control. I'm a businessman, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.